All right, hello YouTube. Welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our roundtable for October. Sorry, is your mic sounding loud? The levels look okay on my side, but
You sound a little loud, but it's okay.
maybe I bumped my thing there.
It's
All right,
possible.
that sounds better. How does it sound on the YouTube side? We've had some technical difficulties, so I want to make sure that everything is looking good. Let me check one other thing.
Hey, Baraki, how do we sound, bud? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah, all right. I'm just double checking, making sure one other thing is set, because it does look quiet on the audio side where it's recording as well. So, then
Disgusting. Disgusting.
We're getting double audio.
okay. All right. How about now? Testing. Just want to make sure it's also the right audio. Make sure it's sounding good.
He says the level pretty low. He says better.
Okay. Let me turn that up. There we go. Now it's looking better on my side, the little leveler thing. So it should be sounding good. All right. Yeah, there now. Okay, I think I did bump the soundboard as well. Sorry, been having some technical difficulties. Everything looked like it was working fine a little bit ago, and then I don't know, like right before we went live, shit started going sideways, which is about normal for technology. So let's go ahead and hit the intro and get started, even though we're a little late. Oh, if the audio. Oh man, I tested that too.
Did it come through in your headphones?
No.
Oh, okay.
Are you?
No, I got nothing. I never heard anything when you tried the soundboard, so.
Oh man. Maybe let's just insert the intro on the podcast side. Let's just get started. I'm not sure why it is suddenly not pulling through, but yeah. Either way, let's just get started then. Welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad,
And I'm Peter.
and we're here for round table number 168. Let's go ahead, and so we're going to go a little bit out of order. I think that we wanted to talk some on the Palaver side. We wanted to talk a couple things before we went into the news and stuff. So let's go ahead and dive on over to the Palaver.
Yeah.
So we had a couple things. Let's see. I just remembered. So we were you finished the Institute,
Yes.
And then-
that was the other one. Okay.
and then also the Long Walk is
The
all
Long
come out.
Walk also came out. We saw it. Unfortunately, it was like right before your vacation, and then we came back and did a book club, so we haven't really had a chance to talk about the movie in depth. If we, or do we want to go in depth? Do we just want to kind of give a overview? Or
Yeah, we can chat through it for a bit. I don't know how in depth we want to go, but yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. What was your expectations going in?
I mean, I liked the book a lot better than you did because you've only read it the one time still, right?
Yeah,
And you weren't in the mood for it and struggled a little bit with it, right?
yeah,
So going in, I think I had a little bit higher expectations because I've read it at least twice, maybe a third time. And I thoroughly enjoyed it each time that I read it. So
yeah.
I was really excited for the movie, especially, with Mark Hamill and how they were making it. And I will say that my expectations were even exceeded. So pleasantly surprised with how it turned out. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like right off the get from the movie, it didn't stop. It started and just went.
Yeah, I had pretty low expectations going in, not necessarily because of my feelings on the book, but just because I don't know. I just of the whole set of movies we had coming out this year, I think this is the one that probably seemed to me like it could end up being the most like mediocre, just mid-level King adaptation. And I don't know, it blew me away. It would definitely ended up being a hell of a lot better than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I would definitely say, it probably put itself up in the higher pantheon of King adaptations in terms of like, great acting, great storytelling. It was very well done. Obviously the director's one that's done a lot of stuff, so I guess I shouldn't necessarily expected bad from him.
Yeah.
I think it was more of just kind of expecting like maybe like studio meddling or something, and I don't know. I just felt like it could end up being just kind of a very middle of the road adaptation, is kind of what I was expecting for some reason. So, but obviously we ended up getting quite a legit adaptation. So it was pretty enjoyable from my perspective. Let's see, what have we had so far this year? We've had The Institute, we've had The Monkey, we've had
Life of Chuck,
and
now
was there 4 things
and
this
now
year?
The Long Walk, and next month is
Running Man.
Man.
So was it only 4 things? No, and then Welcome to Derry is
Welcome to
later
Derry
this month. So it was 5.
That's different though, because it's not a King adaptation, right? I mean, I guess
It is, yeah.
Is it an adaptation? Because it is going to be talking about stuff like the fire at the Black Spot and stuff like that, right? So,
Yeah.
So it's parts of the book, it just done differently. So
Yeah. No, I'm 100% thinking that we're talking, a full-on King adaptation, because we're just going to be hitting like a lot of the what was it, the interludes. You know what? I wonder if that thing just came unplugged. I wonder if that's why we're not getting audio.
Oh, is that why?
Go ahead and riff for a second while I
absolutely. I will take care of that. No, it's in the Welcome to Derry is going to be giving us all the history of Derry stuff. Now I hear it.
Ooh.
Echoey. Tad, this is. Was that coming through double for you?
Yeah.
That was cool.
I'm not sure why that's doing that. But
Pause for a moment.
yeah, no, go ahead and
Okay.
just keep talking. I'll figure out what.
Well, with it, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting the history of Derry. So this is the stuff that Mike Hanlon does in between sections. I don't know if it's necessarily, maybe it is the interlude sections, but it's the Bradley gang, the Kitchener Ironworks disaster, the disappearance of the original, not the original, but like the almost original colony of Derry, the settlers, and then you have the one at I just spaced on the name of the bar, the Claude Hero with the axe murders. So
Yeah.
we're gonna get all that, but it sounds like we're gonna get that over maybe multiple seasons, is what it was sounding like last time.
Yeah, it sounds like they have a plan for 3 seasons. I'm gonna. Ooh, I don't know why that's echoey.
That's crazy.
So yeah, ultimately we won't have sound bites until I can figure out why that's getting all echoey. But that at least makes me feel better that I sorted out what was.
Could you just plug it in for just 1 second? I just want to try something.
Disgusting.
I wanted to hear it in echoey.
Yeah.
We should just record the episode like this.
And then if I mute that, then I don't know what's I don't know what the deal is.
That's
there.
interesting.
Yeah, that is very
We
strange.
definitely have some North Central Positronic stuff going on, because everything was working fine when I showed up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, and I tested it a few hours ago to make sure, because I've done a lot of, based on it was the last, a couple episodes ago on Geekery Abides.
Yeah.
We had a blue screen right at the tail end of the episode.
It was seriously like 10 minutes right before we were about to wrap up and everything. And his whole computer just gone.
Yeah. So it was quite. It was. I mean, it just reset. I think I've sorted it out, but I went through and did a lot of prodding and poking and changing things around.
Yeah.
So I was very cognizant of the fact that I wanted to make sure everything was working, and it was like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, and then suddenly right before recording, goes sideways. So that's pretty obvious and standard though for technology. So. We got the 5 things then.
Yeah.
And we've got 3 out of the 5 are released now. So you have finished. I know we'll circle back to the Long Walk a little bit, but you've finished the Institute. I have not finished it yet. So just haven't had time to watch.
Oh, you still
as
haven't
much.
finished it? Okay,
no.
okay.
So, but I mean, from what I've watched so far, which is very minimal. I have been enjoying it. It seems like. It's another one that I was maybe a little bit apprehensive about, just because, again, I don't know. There's just sometimes you kind of just get the whiff of like this is going to be medium, middle of the road King, versus like, I don't know. I guess it's tough because I don't know if there's ever a time that I'm necessarily like full on counting on like a brilliant adaptation. Like there's times there's ones I have very high expectations for, but I'm never expecting like, oh, Life of Chuck is going to be one of the greater Stephen King, adaptations of all time, or Doctor Sleep. Both of those ended up falling in that category in my opinion, but I wasn't necessarily going in, even with Flanagan's reputation, I don't think I was going into either of those thinking like, oh, we're about to get, something in the same ballpark as Shawshank.
Yeah, I got really excited for Life of Chuck in the last about month or so when I started hearing like how people were reacting to it. We had the film festival reaction initially, and that was so positive. It's like, that's great to hear. But then like it started like test audiences or something like that, like right, or maybe no, it came out and we didn't see it right away. That's what it was. And so those first couple of weeks that it was out, I was seeing like Rotten Tomato scores, and I know you don't hold to the horrible vegetable website.
Yeah, that's true.
As much vegetable, it's a fruit. We know
it's both.
It's both.
Don't they say that's technically both?
Is it really? I've always just heard that it's a fruit.
I mean, at the same time, let's just be completely honest here. Vegetables don't exist in reality.
Yes,
that was invented by grocers.
That's true.
Like in the plant world,
I saw a video about this.
Yeah, there's no such thing as vegetables. That's an entire invention by humanity. So, all that aside, though, yes.
But I was seeing like a lot of hype about it in those first few weeks, and we knew that it was going to go fast. So we actually went on a day that we normally don't go see movies together. Me and you went on a Sunday and went and saw it just to be sure that we saw it.
Yeah.
And it blew our socks off. It was amazing. And so
ooh, no echoey.
No echo. Do we have sound bites?
Nope.
No sound bites.
Oh man, I don't know what's going on.
That's crazy. But we went and saw it, and we were both of us were blown away.
Yeah, and I guess I will say with Life of Chuck, because of the it won that award, which traditionally that puts it in a heavy favorite for being like an Academy Award winner. Not saying that Life of Chuck will get that respect, but there have been a number of them that have won that People's Choice Awards at is it TIFF that went on to win Academy Awards or be nominated for Academy Awards. So I will say that's maybe the one exception. I guess I did lie when I said that, because I do think that's one that I had some expectations of, like, okay, the festivals, not only did it get a lot of rave reviews, but it was won the award, and of course as it got released to more and more places and critics were seeing it. Yeah, the reviews are out there, so maybe that's the one exception. But generally speaking, I just don't expect that. And so for this one, I guess I always just expect good, medium, and shitty. That's kind of like where I'm gauging stuff. And then above and beyond good, very rare do I ever expect greatness.
And then when it happens, it's just kind of like, oh, that's a nice surprise kind of thing. So
yeah.
You were way excited for Life of Chuck because, one, it's a Flanagan.
Yeah. And I love that story too.
And two, you did love the story. I still need to go back and reread it because dude, that story is like a drunken haze for me, is basically how it feels.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember much of anything from it. So I definitely need to revisit that. But what I was going to ask is that, do you think that that's kind of why, what I was going to ask is, do you think that the Institute being on MGM Plus, where we've never, I don't know about you, but I've never watched anything on MGM Plus before, did that kind of like taint you a little bit for the Institute? It's like, well, it's on a streaming service that, I've never watched anything.
If I remember right, is MGM Plus been rebranded? I think the thing that I think Chapelwaite came out on what it was previously called. So it wasn't the first for me, and I didn't finish Chapelwaite. It was good, and I've definitely heard a lot of great things about it. I'd like to go and finish it up, but I'm trying to remember what it was called.
It used to be called Epics.
Yes, and that's what Chapelwaite was on. So It's not the first for me, and not even the first King thing for me. And again, Chapelwaite was pretty well regarded as well. So I don't necessarily think that there was any bias from my perspective on that. But yeah, with The Long Walk, though, and of course, there's not a lot you got to also give credit to lower expectations are sometimes going to make a movie better, right? If you're not expecting it to be a world busting movie. But yeah, ultimately the Long Walk, it really did a great job. I think that the stuff that I think, even with some of the marketing stuff that we covered on this show, I think some of the stuff that surprised me was just how brutal it was.
That is definitely the thing that, especially outside the theater, that we had talked about after we went and saw it, that really caught all of us off guard, was that they didn't hold back.
Yeah.
Like, this is a story about teenage boys walking in a competition that if you drop below a certain speed.
Yeah.
You're given 3 strikes. On the 3rd strike, you're shot in the head.
Yeah, exactly.
You're executed on TV. Like, they're recording this for the nation. It's a dystopian future.
Yeah.
And it's a competition that if you win, you get 1 wish and a ton of money, basically, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I was expecting, okay, you have to show the kids getting killed. The boys have to die.
And we did cover that in the like the pre going like marketing material.
Yeah.
That King basically told them up front, like you can't sugarcoat this. You can't.
Yeah.
You've got to show kids being killed. It's like that was not necessarily a surprise, but I think the level to which they went with the gore is what surprised me.
Yeah, we get to the very first kill, and this is as far as I'm going to go into the film is here. We get to that very first kill. The first kid gets strike 1, gets strike 2. We're like, oh, God, are we going to get a strike 3 right here? Are we going to get an elimination? And we got it, and I'm like, and I even said this outside the theater. I'm like, okay, they're going to show the shot from a distance, or they're going to cut away right before and then you're going to see the rifle shot. They do it famously in a lot of different films.
Yeah,
where
even Superman that just came out earlier this year, where it cuts way back.
You don't see a close-up of him getting shot in the head.
Yeah.
Exactly. Long Walk didn't. It stayed right. It kept his face in frame, and you saw a rifle bullet go through his head.
Yeah.
And that's brutal to do.
Yeah.
And that set the tone for the movie. And from there, I knew what I was watching.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant filmmaking.
Yeah, and I think that even things like people having to go to the bathroom, like it didn't ever like sugarcoat anything. Like it was as brutal as it should have been. And I do think that like I said, with where we're at. So what do we got? We got the monkey. We've got
the Institute, Life of
Institute,
Chuck,
and Life
The
of
Long
Chuck.
Walk.
Ooh, that's tough, man.
It's been a
That's
killer
tough.
year.
It's been a great year.
No, it's been a killer year.
And we're not even done yet.
Intended.
We still got 2 more, and the 2 that are left are the ones that I probably had the highest not Life of Chuck. I probably had the highest expectations because it was Flanagan.
Right.
But like outside of that, it would have been Life of Chuck, and then it would have been The Running Man, and then it would have been Welcome to Derry. Would have been my top 3, as I would have expected them to be great.
I'm going to debate you a little bit because I do know that you've been yelling and screaming from the rooftops for the monkey to be adapted for years.
Yeah.
So I think you had a little bit of expectation with that too.
So it would have went Life of Chuck because of Flanagan, Running Man because Edgar Wright's one of my favorite filmmakers,
Okay.
And then Welcome to Derry just because it's Andy Muschietti. We're getting back there, especially once they finally confirmed that it took a long time to confirm that Skarsgård was coming back. So that would have been 3, and then it would have been the monkey, and then it would have been the Institute. That would have been.
You were really excited about Osgood Perkins doing the monkey.
And it's not necessarily like I was like not. It's more of just that it was outclassed by some of these other things here. So
Flanagan, of course.
Yeah, Flanagan, Muschietti, and then Edgar Wright. Like for me, it really did come down to this year, probably thinking of it from the perspective of filmmakers. And and again, it's not to say that Osgood Perkins as the monkey was like in the second to last spot because it doesn't deserve any better. It's more of just that it can't wrestle with those other names.
Sure.
From my perspective.
Sure.
And the Institute I had and the Institute and Long Walk at the bottom, or I guess those are the bottom 2. Those ones I had very little expectation for, but yeah, the Institute or the Long Walk has really thrown itself all the way up, like to the point where it's just kind of blew my mind a bit.
It really did catch me off guard. Like as much as I enjoyed the novel, there's always that fear when you get an adaptation. There's always that fear of like I think you said it earlier, like the studio twisting things like, oh, well, we can't show kids dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, Stephen King was like, no, you can't shy away from that. That's the story.
That's the story.
And it is one of the more brutal stories. When you
Yeah.
look at Stephen King's pantheon
Yeah.
of what is the most messed up, horrific stuff that he writes, a lot of people are going to point to The Shining. A lot of people are going to point to it and stuff like that. Man, I got to tell you, I think The Long Walk is right up there.
Yeah, I think that and like Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary is another one, which we just did our Patreon hangout for yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's So ultimately though, and also got to give some flowers to Mark Hamill.
Oh,
playing the general
Major.
or Major. That's right.
Let's not promote him or anything.
He deserves it.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, he is a terrorist in Star Wars, but beyond that,
not a terrorist.
blowing up government installations, sir, killing hundreds of thousands of people. including plumbers,
He's a patriot.
including plumbers,
Patriot.
as we learned in Clerks. Rocky mentioned Tad got a new Dell. No, it's a homemade computer, but I do
Yeah.
think that I've got some maybe some RAM that's potentially defective or something. But luckily, it's got a warranty. I've just now got to isolate which of my sticks it is, and then send the RMA and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I have done a lot of messing with my computer. over the
He's
last
been poking and prodding it for a little bit.
Yeah, good chunk of yesterday spent
Yeah.
messing with the computer. So so there's that, and then the Institute. What from your perspective? And I don't care about spoilers. I've read the book and stuff. So the fact they've got another season coming. How do you feel about that now that you've actually finished it? And like, do you feel? I mean, we both like the Institute. What did you think of the adaptation? Like I said, the first 2-3 episodes I watched, I was fairly impressed with what we were seeing so far. But I think I barely just got the young kid showing up. Is about
Yeah.
when that was the end of an episode. I think that's the last episode I watched.
I think that the Institute and the Long Walk are showing filmmakers something that Andy Muschietti started. That he didn't do much of it because I guess I should tell the chat this. The listeners they don't know yet, Tad. My wife watched it chapter 1 with me.
Oh yeah.
I guess we got to talk about that too. But Andy Muschietti kind of started it because it is fresh in my mind that I did watch it chapter 1 with my wife about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. The child horror and the not pulling punches anymore. I think that's been a big thing with and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is that I think that a large problem with Stephen King adaptations is that Stephen King in his novels doesn't pull punches. He will sock you in the jaw, kick you in the nuts, rub your face in dirt, and then call you names.
Yeah.
That's always been Stephen King's style. And I mean that with the most love. I love Stephen King. Because he makes you feel something.
Yeah.
Now, that's not every novel. Obviously, he has really... Oh, I'm echoing again. He has really heartfelt stuff, too, when you look at other stuff like 11/22/63. But also, at the same time, when you read something like that, it still punches you in the gut a couple times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that's where I think that the adaptations have fallen short, is that they pull those punches. They don't put everything that they can behind it, is what I mean by pulling punches, if you don't know that phrase. I think that some filmmakers are just a little scared that they don't want to go full bore and see a kid get eaten alive by blood-sucking leeches in it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to show that.
Yeah.
You don't want to see that kid, before he gets eaten, have a flashback where he murders his 6-month-old younger brother
Yeah.
by suffocating him in his crib.
Yeah.
I think that filmmakers are starting to finally realize that if you don't pull punches, that if you do the full thing, which is why when you go back and look at some of those great adaptations, The Shining didn't pull any punches. It's not as accurate as other ones, but when you look at The Green Mile, they didn't hide away from that.
Yeah.
Frank went straight into it. Same thing with Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
How easy would it have been to make the Shawshank Redemption and leave out the male rape?
Yeah.
How easy would that have been to leave out the suicide of the one that got out?
Yeah.
All of that,
Yeah. Brooks.
all of that could have been left out, and it still would have been a great story, right?
Yeah.
But when it's put in, it hits harder.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of these adaptations over the years have been like, yeah, it's good, but like Firestarter.
Yeah.
Firestarter has had issues with all of its adaptations because I feel like
Except for the judo chop to the face.
that's the only good part about either of the adaptations. But I feel like a lot of them pull their punches a little bit when it comes to the real heart of the story. The Long Walk, The Monkey, and The Institute, none of them are pulling their punches in those three. I mean, come on. The Monkey, Jesus Christ, how many people died? It had a burning baby carriage, like a stroller.
Yeah.
And we think there was a baby in there. Tad's hoping.
Oh yeah, it has to be. Osgood is too. And that whole movie was so insane.
It was just off the wall.
Yeah. So.
But that's what I'm trying to say is that the Institute followed in line with The Long Walk, where it doesn't pull punches. You have kids literally being tortured to death. You have kids that are being used for government experiments to do their bidding. They're saying that they're saving the world, right?
Yeah.
We don't know that that's true. They're doing what they want to have their world saved.
Yeah.
and they're using up children to do that.
Yeah.
That's dark as fuck, man.
Yeah.
And they're not pulling the punches with it.
How
either.
very Wolves of the Call of them.
Not it is very Wolves of the Collar. That is very North Central Positronic and Sombra. That is very evil of them. That is very Flag of them. Is what that is.
Oh, that's a slander there.
no, it's not. That's literally who's running that. His flag.
Slander.
No.
Slander.
It's very Vegas of them from the stand.
Baraki says one of King's greatest strengths is character development, and when the horror comes, it hits harder because you care. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think that's the main thing that a lot of horror movies tend to like. The horror movies that tend to not do as well, that's the lesson they haven't learned, is like the more you care about the characters, like I feel like especially like slashers, which I adore slashers, but the lesser slashers, like they don't even try. It's just like, well, here's a bunch of two-dimensional teenagers that are going to get butchered in this, like, and it's like, so you don't care. So and then they wonder why down the road you're cheering for Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers.
Why
As
would
the audience, it's like, yeah, it's like you're not giving me anything,
What am I supposed to cheer against?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what am I supposed to cheer for aside from Michael or Jason, who's killing these idiots?
Yeah.
That's why movies like The Conjuring are so good. You care about the Warrens. They're
Yeah.
humans and everything like that. They have a daughter. You care about them.
Yeah.
And that's why The Conjuring is so scary, is because you care what's going to happen to them.
And it sets up all the families of whoever they're trying to help as well. But
oh, yeah, that as well is also is that when you have the family initially, what's the infestation phase in the first movie where it like breaks down the
Yeah.
whole haunting and everything?
Yeah.
That's you learn to love those characters. It's the same thing with like The Exorcist. That
Yeah.
first third of that movie is only about learning about Reagan and getting to care about her and her mom and their relationship and everything.
Yeah.
Like you see like the birthday the dad doesn't call and everything. So
Yeah.
it's like that's exactly it. And Baraki's right. And the Institute, I don't know if the Long Walk necessarily did it as much, except no, they did, because they started forming like the brotherly bond, and that's where you started to care about them, right?
Yeah.
The Institute's doing that as well. You're starting to care about these characters because you're like, man, I hope these kids get out okay.
Yeah.
I don't want them to die.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's and that's what King does in the book as well. He does a really great job of really building it out to where you actually really feel. I mean, most of the book is basically spent falling in love with those kids, so that when it gets to the point where they're being abused or they're whatever else, like you feel for them. Like it's like that's I don't know. That's the main thing. And I think tangenting a little bit, that's where like Scream did a good job slasher wise, right? It's like you cared for the characters so that as it went and progressed and you saw some of the characters die, like it kind of sucked because it's like, oh man, I like that person or whatever. So
the first Halloween does a really good job of that because you care about Laurie, and then not only that, you have Laurie and Annie are babysitting kids.
Yeah.
And you may not care about the kids because you're Tad and you're horrible, but other people do. It's like, don't let anything happen to them. What did Tommy do? He's such an innocent little boy. He just wants to carve pumpkins and eat popcorn.
Yeah, I did like Tommy. He's not that obnoxious. Now, Lindsay, on the other hand, that's a little bit of a different story. She was a little irritating.
If you say so.
All right. Anything else you have on the Insta? Are you excited for season 2?
I am. I think it's set up. I think we have somewhere to go with it. That was one of the things. Is like, the book was one and done. I don't see how you can kind of like tell that whole story and then still have more left over. But I think they did a good job. I think we have something left over to tell. So,
yeah. I'm excited to finish the first season. Hopefully, I can now start to catch up on stuff through the tail end of the year, all the stuff. Because I've fallen behind. I haven't. I don't remember how far I fell off of Alien Earth, but like there's a bunch of stuff that I've been really enjoying.
I mean, a vacation to Mexico doesn't help you staying on top of things, Tad.
Yeah. I did
Maybe
watch.
We need to cut those out.
I did watch Peacemaker in Mexico, though.
You did. You did. That's the one thing you stayed up on.
Yes, indeed. All right. So is that it for the Palaver section?
I had one more thing that I wanted to talk about. I brought this up on the Patreon hangout yesterday. That I have a new theory, because this podcast does have King theories aplenty.
Yeah.
I honestly believe, and I want to make sure that I get my my dates right here. Let me pull this up. I forgot to pull this up before. Sorry. This is about the Talisman.
Okay.
We're about to get the Talisman 3, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think it's confirmed, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. In fact, I think the last thing we heard, it was in another interview, and it was kind of just a throwaway thing that they mentioned that King said that his draft was done for it. So it's now in the editorial process. So
Yeah. So the Talisman came out in, that's what I'm looking up. It came out in 1984. Okay. Now, in 1984, the last Dark Tower book that we had was just the Gunslinger, which was the death of Jake, right?
Yes.
The end of Gunslinger, Jake dies.
Yeah.
I believe the Talisman was written simply so Stephen King could kill and beat up on Jake more. He wasn't done with that character. He didn't know that he would come back in the Wastelands yet, because he didn't hear the Song of the Turtle telling him that. I believe that the Talisman was written just so he could just be mean to this kid again, because we've always said that Jake and Jack are twinners.
Yeah.
They seem so much alike and everything like that.
Yeah.
So it's just little fun, little not fun theory. I guess not fun is a lot of the theories with Stephen King, but man, that guy, what is it? Why does he hate this kid so much?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I'm going through the Talisman. I got kind of sidetracked because I was reading a book that one of our fans recommended. But geez, that poor kid goes through so much.
Yeah.
And I'm only a part way through the book, and he's been abused, he's been abducted, he's been mistreated, he's been threatened.
Yeah.
He's been physically assaulted. He almost died by a fucking tree, which is like the worst way to go.
Yeah.
A tree, of all things.
Yeah. Evil Dead taught us that.
That's
or
right.
Lord of the Rings.
Trees will walk.
Yeah.
They weren't evil in Lord of the Rings, though.
It depends on your opinion, right?
Well, that's it for the Palaver, yeah.
Oh, man. All right, so let's go ahead and go on over to the news then. Brachio says, I feel like I know some of the characters in Dark Tower better than I know some of my extended family. Sad but true. And I mean, honestly, extended family, you can't be blamed for that.
No.
I mean, yeah, especially as you get a little bit older and stuff. Like, I don't know, when you're like younger, even extended family, you tend to when there's just your grandparents and their kids and maybe you're the first wave of grandkids, but then when those grandkids grow up and start having kids, it all separates out and stuff, and you just get less and less contact with your extended family.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then Brocky says lots of characters in the King universe are the same. Consider Danny Torrance. Yeah, there's a lot of twinners throughout the King realm for sure. But yeah, Jake and Jack are definitely twinners.
Absolutely.
So let's go into the first news bit here, and that's quite a long title. But Stephen King novella Rat getting movie adaptation from The Witch and the Lighthouse producer and Mexican director Isaac Esbon. It is by Andreas Wiseman from Deadline on September 24th, 2025. So it's funny, there have been a number of projects that have been announced, and in some cases a while ago, that have seemingly had no forward progress. One of those is Ben Stiller getting the rights to Rat back in 2020. Honestly, I'd assumed by this point he's lost the rights by now. And also with his insanely popular show Severance, it's not like he's hurting for projects to work on right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he necessarily expected the kind of hit that show has been. So I've mostly assumed, but the problem is that usually until a new thing gets signed, they don't really announce someone losing the rights. It's always very quiet. It's very, hush hush. But yeah, it seems like at some point Ben Stiller lost the rights, and now we've got a new group of people that got the rights to Rat.
Yeah, it was the Dark Tower that we found out years later that it reverted back to King,
and then Flanagan got it within a month of that.
Month of that, yeah.
So,
but we didn't even know that it had gone back to King for a year or two. Right? Wasn't it like 22, 23?
Something. I mean, no, 22. I think is when we heard about the Flanagan thing. So
it's like, well, wait a minute.
I mean, we kind of figured that because what's his name said Mazzara said that he was going to shop it around to a number of other places and stuff, but it sounds like that only lasted less than a month, because within a month of Amazon passing, Flanagan got the rights.
Yeah.
So it reverted from Mazzara back to King, and then was sold to Flanagan. So it all happens very quickly, but a lot of times we can't know. And we have the big board, for instance. Actually, I did not update this, so I do apologize. I'll flip it over there though. So the Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon is not new anymore, but Rat is still on there. So I guess we just reset it to the point where Rat is now being done again, just with a different group of people. So
Yeah.
the article starts off by saying Rat is now being adapted by a team including The Witch and The Lighthouse producer Jay Van Hoy. It's being written by longtime Flanagan collaborator Jeff Howard. And I will just pause to say Jeff Howard wrote Oculus, Ouija Origins of Evil, Gerald's Game, The Haunting of Hill House, and Midnight Mass.
This sounds like a Flanagan alumni.
Yeah, he's basically he's been a long time collaborator with Flanagan. So that's our writer for this.
All right.
So that you can't go wrong there. The film will be directed by Mexican filmmaker Isaac Esbon, who has only ever directed films in Mexico. So this will be his first Hollywood film. The story follows Drew Larson, a writer who, quote, cursed by his own ambitions. Each attempt at a novel has ended in disaster, illness, misfortune, or worse. Determined to break the cycle, he retreats to a desolate cabin in the Maine woods, convinced this time will be different. But as the violent storm traps him in isolation, Drew's body falters and his mind begins to unravel. In the grips of the fever and madness, a stranger appears, an uncanny visitor who promises salvation and success for a price Drew barely can comprehend. So, this, of course, comes from the collection If It Bleeds, and once this actually comes out, it will leave only the titular story from that being the only one not adapted. We've previously seen Mr. Harrigan's Phone and The Life of Chuck be adapted. Yep. So, of the four stories in that collection, seemingly the Holly Gibney story is the only one that will remain unadapted
For now.
For now, yes. And then director Esbon said, quote, Stephen King has always been my favorite writer ever since I started reading horror as a teenager. And since then, I've had a long time dream of adapting some of his materials. He embodies the essence of contrast of beauty and brutality that has shaped my vision and sensibilities as a storyteller. I've read most of his works, and Rat remains one of my favorite stories he's ever created. The perfect match, a dark, intimate, bizarre, and even humorous and deeply unsettling story that gets under your skin. I see this as a survival movie about writer's block and also about the ultimate tale of our craft versus our people, our creations versus our loved ones, our art versus our family, a theme I very personally relate to. King has always inspired me as a filmmaker and a storyteller, and I feel honored to bring his tale to life. So, that's exciting, I suppose.
Yeah.
Rat was probably my least favorite story out of that. I do think you enjoyed it more because I had you read it out of order.
Yes.
Because I do feel like the big problem with Rat and the way that whole thing was laid out is it came after If It Bleeds. I think if you would have just went Harrigan's Phone, Life of Chuck, Rat, and then If It Bleeds, I think I would have enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
But it just felt very like. It's like one solo firework after the grand finale is kind of what it felt like to me. So, but I mean, it was a good story for sure. And I don't know, we've had a lot of great filmmakers come out of Mexico. This is actually a guy that's had a lot of roses given to him from Guillermo del Toro and stuff. So he's kind of feeling like a big up and comer when it comes to in the American scene. So
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Rocky asks, how optimistic are you about the being able to adapt The Girl Who Loves Tom Gordon? I love that book, but I fear it will be hard to adapt well. You still haven't read it, have you?
I have not.
So,
and it won't be the last time that story is mentioned in this episode.
Let's hold off that question.
No. Just,
okay.
Not in that realm. But yes, I have not read it. Honestly, though, would it be any harder to adapt than Gerald's Game?
It's in the same ballpark. I honestly don't know if.
But she's wandering and stuff. At least she's not tied to a bed.
But you also have to take into account that this isn't an adult. So again, we have, and I have faith that they can find a star in a teenager or a tweener, whatever you want to call it. 9 to 14 is probably the age range you're looking for.
Yeah,
I'm sure they can find someone who can carry a movie.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of. Can they find someone that can carry the movie by herself? Basically, it's about 90% her. And then, are they willing to do the horror?
Yeah.
Again,
Brocky says it's all inside personal thought, so it's very introspective. So, and again, I haven't read it, so that's unfamiliar to me. So, yeah, if it's, her wandering through it, but if you're having to, like, dive into her mind and stuff, like, that'll be a challenge for a filmmaker for sure. So.
Versus, like, Gerald's Game where you have the external, the dog, and the Moonlight Man.
Yeah.
This one is solely, there's an external threat that's loose in the woods, but then everything for her is internal.
I'm hoping for a beastie.
It's not a beastie. Sorry, Ted. But, I think that they could do it as long as they don't pull the punches like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
If they don't pull the punches, they could make one of the best films of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely looking forward to it, but definitely look forward to the Rat as well. Or Rat, not the Rat, but Rat. Should be fun.
El Rata?
I love the, yeah, there you go. I do always appreciate the ones getting adapted that have never been adapted before, if nothing else. So
there's plenty out there. Instead of adapting Carrie for the 9th time,
I will take it because it's Flanagan, though. On the other side of those tracks, though, we have the next one exclusive. Stephen King approves of the new ending in Edgar Wright's The Running Man by Ryan Lambie from Film Stories on October 1st, 2025.
Yeah, we knew that it was going to have to change.
Yeah, so the article starts by saying anyone who's read the novel of The Running Man and saw the Schwarzenegger film knows full well they're not even close to the same thing. It then says that coming next month, we have a new, more accurate to the source material adaptation coming from Hot Fuzz director Edgar Wright, starring Glenn Powell. It then reveals that King was given the final approval of the entire screenplay, and Wright said, quote, possibly the most nerve-wracking day of the entire production was writing to King with the attached screenplay and pressing send. It's funny because we almost heard the exact same thing from Flanagan on Dr. Sleep, especially Dr. Sleep, though, because he had to, walk that line
That's such a minefield that he had to walk.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah. And Wright, and then so Wright goes on and says everybody knew at the outset the novel's ending wasn't going to be part of the adaptation exactly in the exact way. He goes on and says, quote, he realized even before he read it that we weren't going to be doing the ending from the book. And when King emailed back, he said, I was very curious how you were going to tackle the ending, and I think you did a great job. So I was very happy with that. And the article largely teases that that this is actually a longer interview with Wright, but it's for this publication's physical magazine. So this is just kind of like almost like a little tease of the whole thing. But that's all we needed to get, though. I mean, honestly, I even think I've messaged some people on some message boards in the last little bit where they were like almost bitching in advance that they wouldn't do the ending. I'm like, you're an idiot if you think they're doing that ending, man. And like, just
let's clarify for those of you who haven't read it.
Well, I would
don't spoil it.
I wouldn't.
Let's just say that the ending of it is something that people don't take too kindly to.
Yeah, it
is a highly controversial act.
Not when it was written. Not when it was
not
written.
when it was written, but now
it would be seen much differently than when it was written.
And so for them to change it, I think you even said this on an episode about 6-9 months ago or so, maybe like closer to the beginning of the year. You were talking like they have to change the ending, right? Yeah. Like they can't do that, right? and I was like, no, there's no way that they could do that.
I mean, I would hope that you could get a little bit, don't pull your punches and stuff. And maybe I was going to hold my breath, but it's like if I would have seen that ending on screen, I would have been a very happy person just in the sense of like the balls it would take to actually do that. And a guy like Edgar Wright's a guy that probably has the cachet to maybe pull that off. But no, it doesn't sound like that's the case. So
I think that Edgar Wright's smart enough to know that there's a difference between pulling a punch and just blatantly like going out of your way to piss off an entire country,
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Now, here's one to get Peter's blood angered up.
Oh, no. Is the sentient mist? Is it back?
No, I did see someone ask on Reddit just recently about, hey, what can you tell me about this Mist TV series? Is it worth watching? Oh, man. So this one, though, Quentin Tarantino dismisses Stephen King's It as a ripoff of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, get the hell out of here.
This is by Cody Hamann from Joe Blow from October 9th, 2025.
Oh, my God. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It is. So, and it's arguably the most popular work ever created by King. And
You know what? I know we don't usually...
we don't have sound bites right now, though.
Pam.
Pam, that's just stupid.
Oh, I definitely have to figure that out. I don't know what's going on with the
soundboards.
I
need them.
Which means on the next show I can just mention a lot of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
how dare you? I'm gonna pull it up on my phone.
And then King had said, quote, I think that when I die, I will kind of disappear from the paperback racks, and then that fucking clown is going to live forever. I disagree with the first half. That's never going to happen. King's going to be around for, a millennia probably, as long as
I think he's going to be remembered for a lot of things, but I think Pennywise is number one.
Yeah. So, of course, it was adapted in 1990 and in 2017 and 2019, and then we're under a month away from Welcome to Derry. But apparently Quentin Tarantino was not a fan. He was on Eli Roth's podcast, History of Horror Uncut, and took the opportunity to show his stupidity or his saltiness, and that's my ad in there. And he said, quote, the book It is Stephen King's ripoff of A Nightmare on Elm Street. He just replaces Freddy Krueger with Pennywise. It's just exactly like Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, wow, that's really neat. A really neat idea. Don't worry, sir. I'll get to it. That's really clever. That's cool. Well, let's take that idea and do my version of it. Now, his version of it is going to be a 560-page novel. He's a terrific writer in that regard. So he fills it with minutia, and he fills it with good prose, and he fills it with his good writing, which is what Wes Craven didn't have. Take away all the cake and frosting and all the little frosted flowers that you're putting on it, and basically it's just a ripoff of Nightmare on Elm Street. So first of all, he gets the page count wrong. 560. No, it's 1138. I'll always remember that number because Lucas and
1138.
Yes, Lucas and 1138 are very ingrained because that was his childhood phone number. I don't know if you ever knew that or not. Do you know that trivia?
Oh, is that where that came from?
THX was the letters of the first three numbers, and then 1138. That was his. It was his childhood home phone number. So, but he's also a moron because it's long been known that King wrote the novel for at least 4 to 6 years, meaning that it well predated Wes Craven's film.
That's what I was looking up as the dates and see how they lined up.
Yeah, no.
Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 1984. It came out in 1986.
Yeah, but King was writing it from 80 to 81. Somewhere in there is when he started writing it. So, also hilarious, as Tarantino has openly admitted, as that much of his filmography is just ripping stuff off and then putting his own spin on it. So it's kind of interesting for him to be making this accusation. Then the way I view it is either he's totally ignorant or he's just salty that King a few years ago slammed Kill Bill. And I was very happy about this. I don't remember if we covered this or not because maybe I didn't feel like getting it salty for people that maybe enjoyed it. I've never liked Kill Bill. I just that.
I never liked it. I liked the first one a little bit. I was like, okay, this is kind of a pretty good movie. I get it. Revenge story. That's fun. I watched Volume 2 and I went, I'm never watching those again. Those were not worth it.
Yeah, and Captain David says that there's no way you could have read the book and actually have said that as well.
Yeah, I know, right?
And I agree with that as well. But also, here's what King said about Kill Bill at one point. Quote, it's just dully full of itself. Uma Thurman tries hard and she's the best thing in the movie, but in the end, she's stuck playing a woman who's labeled instead of a human being. She is, God save us, the bride. And he goes on and says, there's not even an ending you can hang your hat on. We're just told to stay tuned for more karate kicks, throws, and falsetto, birdie sound, battle cries. King also wasn't wholly negative, though arguing that, quote, it's certainly well made. The story garners some of our interest as it goes along, although he insists it's dull as dull, isn't it? So
yeah,
I just, the first thing that came to my mind when I read about this, I'm like, I wonder if he's just mad that King shit on his movie. And then, quote, all I'm doing here is trying to focus on the feelings of vague dissatisfaction you're apt to experience leaving the movie, the sense that you came to be entertained and instead found yourself warming your hands to the bonfire of Quentin Tarantino's vanities. So he went even further there. So, yeah. I don't know. Either way, it's stupid, but I did want to bring it up because it's been quite the talk of the King realm the last little bit. So, and I knew it would anger you up quite a bit there. So.
Okay, are we actually going to talk about how wrong he is? Like
I mean, story wise too, right? Like Dave in the chat said, there's not even
there's no semblance whatsoever.
Like that's kind of in the same sense of saying Harry Potter's a total ripoff of Luke Skywalker. Like, yes, if you take a few steps back and blur your eyes, there's
an orphan boy with a magical ability who has an old mentor. Yes, that is the ripoff there of Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, but again, so when you bring it down to very general, you can kind of do that with a lot of things, and I think you've got to do that to make this comparison ultimately.
Yeah.
So, it's total nonsense. And I like Tarantino to a bit. I go gaga over him as much as some do. Some of his stuff is really, really good, and a lot of his stuff to me is very passable and just so. And Kill Bill is one I've never liked. I watched it back in the day, and I have never cared for it. It just
I think a lot of his stuff is overrated. There's some really good stuff that Tarantino has done. I'm not gonna lie. There's a ton of stuff that I love of his.
Yeah.
That's really good and rewatchable and has good story and good acting and everything like that. And then there's other stuff that I watch it one time because it's Tarantino. It's supposed to be good, right? And I watch it and I go, I didn't care for that. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't like Hateful Eight.
Oh, really?
I didn't.
I did, just because, like, it being a tribute to The Thing. I think just seeing it through that paradigm, I enjoyed that one. But yeah, no, yeah, it's ultimately, though, yeah, this is a nonsense argument. It's just
terrible.
It's
a terrible take. There's no similarities between Nightmare on Elm Street and it, aside from the only thing you could say is that they're both shapeshifters.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing.
Yeah, because Pennywise isn't even coming at you in your dreams or anything.
No, you're not asleep.
Like,
you're awake.
No, you'd like to be asleep.
Yeah, and he eats you. Freddy just kills you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just.
Yeah, it's a pretty
The
bad
motivation between the killers is not even the same.
No, there's
one is to feed and eat. The other one is revenge.
Yeah, there's not a lot there. I don't know. And the thing is, ultimately, I do kind of lean towards it's probably saltiness, because, like, the thing is like, Tarantino has been one that's talked a lot over the years about just film in general, and I think he's proven to be pretty well, you know, he does a good job. Like, and he also doesn't ever necessarily pull his punches. Like, you know, if he doesn't like something, he'll just say it. And, like, a lot of filmmakers don't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, he's watched a lot of, and he's kind of ingrained in the film realm and stuff, and he's watched a lot of shit, so a lot of times he has good takes on stuff. But yeah, this is definitely a very, very bad take.
It's
for sure.
terrible.
So, next up, we've got Salem's Lot is celebrating its 50th anniversary.
Oh,
we
wow.
we
He
talked
was
about it last
ashamed
year,
of his
the 50th
geekery and
anniversary of
forgotten the
Carrie.
face of
Well,
Stan Lee.
what comes the year after Carrie is Salem's Lot. So, this one is 8 Fascinating Facts about Stephen King's Salem's Lot for its 50th anniversary by Jake Rosen from Mental Floss on October 9, 2025. So yeah, 50-year anniversary of Salem's Lot, which is maybe one of the most critical of King's early books. Carrie was a hit, but it was his second book where he had to truly prove whether he was just a flash in the pan and a one-hit wonder, or if he was someone that, you know, people actually had to keep their eyes on. And obviously, Salem's Lot kind of panned out. And, you know, people realized, like, okay, no, this wasn't just you know, and musicians are that way too. Sometimes a band comes out, they have a really great initial album, and then they just never recapture that magic. And, you know, this is the one that at least gave people an idea of, like, okay, he wasn't just a one-book guy.
Yeah.
Maybe we should keep an eye on him and
This
stuff.
is
So
the
that's,
podcast.
Yeah, pretty
Geekery
critical.
Abides.
I would say maybe even more critical than Carrie. I mean, yeah, Carrie had to, like, get an audience for sure, but, like,
It's always the question, whether it's in sports or music or literature or acting. Can they do it again?
yeah,
Like, great, you won the Super Bowl. Can you do it again? Great,
Yeah.
you won you made a really good movie. Great. Can you do it again and win an Oscar?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing with Leonardo DiCaprio there for years, wasn't it?
yeah.
When's he going to get his Oscar kind of thing? So
Yeah.
can he do it again?
Yeah, so Salem's Lot ended up doing well. It sold 3 million copies in paperback, but the article mentions it it can actually tend to get overlooked in the pantheon of King. Then it says celebrating 50th anniversary, they're going to give 8 fascinating facts about the book. Number 1, Salem's Lot was inspired by Dracula. I don't think that's the biggest surprise. King was, of course, a teacher before he got full-time writing, and he actually used Bram Stoker's Dracula in his curriculum for his fantasy and sci-fi realm. That was one of the books he used. And the idea was born out of his idea of what if Dracula showed up in contemporary America.
Yeah.
So, and then, quote, one night over supper, I wondered aloud what would happen if Dracula came back in the 20th century to America, King once recalled of the book's origins. Quote, he's probably going to be run over by a yellow cab on Park Avenue and killed, my wife said. That closed the discussion, but the following day, my mind just kept returning to the idea. It occurred to me that if my wife was probably right, the legendary Count came to New York, that was probably the end. But what if he showed up in a sleepy little country town? What then? So I decided I wanted to find out. So I wrote Salem's Lot, which was originally titled Second Coming. So that's kind of cool. And I know at one point it was Jerusalem's Lot as well, but the not publisher said, no, you can't do that. Everyone will think it's a religious book. So number 2, it was written in a trailer. So Carrie sold a measly 13,000 copies in paperback, I'm sorry, in hardcover, only sold 13,000 copies, and it only hit it huge in paperback. And Salem's Lot was written before the paperback hit, so he had yet to see his eventual $200,000 paycheck that would change his life. So he and Tabitha lived in a trailer in Herman, Maine, which King called the asshole of the universe, or at least within farting distance of it. So, and he wrote it in the room where the heater was at, the little for the trailer. So that's where Salem's Lot was written.
So he was high on gas fumes.
Number 3, it had a sequence too horrible to publish. So in a 1983 interview with Playboy, King was asked if anything was off limits, and he recalled a passage too repulsive for him and for Doubleday. Quote, I had a scene in which Jimmy Cody, the local doctor, is devoured in a boarding house basement by a horde of rats summoned from the town's dump by the leader of the vampires, King said. They swarm all over him like a writhing, furry carpet, biting and clawing, and when he tries to scream to warn his companions upstairs, one of them scurries down his open mouth and squirms in there and as it gnaws his tongue out.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and Doubleday refused to accept the manuscript with that scene, so it was changed to him being killed with knives. And King mentioned it was never the same.
Good Lord. Speaking of King not pulling punches,
yeah.
Exhibit A, Your Honor.
Yeah, but at this point, he wouldn't have been successful enough to basically, they would have the ability to tell him no, right? Like I said earlier,
nowadays they would,
like Edgar Wright and stuff, right? Like there's filmmakers that way. Christopher Nolan at this point could write his check, whatever he wants to do. No one's going to tell him no, right?
Yeah.
There's just certain filmmakers that are that way, and I think King got there probably in the next couple years after this, but in this point, he didn't have that leverage. So, and then number 4, there was a printing error on the original publication. The cover jacket of the original publication refers to Father Cody, which does not appear in the book. They appear to have mixed up Father Callahan and Jimmy Cody, the doctor. So that is one of the indicators if you ever have a first edition hardcover is the dust jacket references Father Cody. So, number 5, Salem's Lot introduced the pivotal Dark Tower character. Of course, we know all about this here, so I'm not really going to go into it. We know that Father Callahan obviously shows up later in the Dark Tower series and becomes a member of our quartet.
Yep.
So, but maybe not everyone knows that, but us Dark Tower junkies, of course, do. Number 6, it didn't sell well at first. So, like Carrie, the book struggled with its hardcover edition, and it wasn't until paperback that the genre fans flocked to the novel. The hardcover cost $7.95, and the paperback eventually, when it came out, was only $1.75. So, just like Carrie, struggled in hardcover, but did gangbusters in paperback. The Shining was the first of his books that ever did well for both. It's the first one that sold well in hardcover with the higher price point as well as paperback. So, that's why largely everyone points to The Shining, because those first two really kind of helped grow the foundation for then him to be like the massive hit that was The Shining. So,
gotcha.
It led to Creepshow.
Yeah.
So the book was going to be adapted by George Romero, but it was changed once they changed it to a TV miniseries. He backed out, but that led to Romero and King having conversations, which birthed the classic Creepshow. Gotta love that monkey.
Terrible.
And then number 8, King was not the biggest fan of the first adaptation, which is pretty well regarded. He was not able to watch it. Also, another thing they kind of hide in here is that he was not able to watch it when it first aired, because apparently he did not get good ABC reception in his main home. So instead, he saw it for the first time at a watch party at a local pub using a tape that was given to him by the network, and he did not like that Barlow looked like Nosferatu, but did say that all things considered, it could have been much worse than it was. So, and it's kind of funny because that's kind of stuck. Like, that was so iconic that now, like, even the future versions have made, I feel like Barlow's always portrayed in more of a Nosferatu type way, which he's not in the book, right? In the book, he's just a normal vampire. So,
just a vampire.
So that's kind of fun. Happy 50th to Salem's Lot, and The Shining has got to be coming up here pretty quick too.
Yeah.
I always forget. I don't know if it was the exact next year. No, 77. So we got a couple years until the 50th for that, as well as Rage, which obviously is not as easy to come by. So yeah, we got a few. We're basically going to be rolling through 50th anniversaries here for the next 50, 60 years. All right, so the next one.
Before we do go on to the next one, Baraki asked a question a little bit ago that I wanted to pose to you.
Oh yeah, I didn't see it.
King is notorious for bad endings, but which stories made you go, "Oh my God, that ending was perfect"?
Honestly, I don't think the bad endings is that legit. I won't necessarily say that he's like an endings guy. You know, there's some that like they're really good at endings. And I feel like King's always about the journey more than the ending.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like the whole bad with endings I think is such a meme that I don't know that it's legit, because I don't know that there's that many that I've really like got to the end and went like, that kind of sucked. Like that doesn't happen to me very often. Now again, some of them are more mediocre and stuff, but I mean, of course, Flag coming back at the end of the stand can't get any more perfect than that. So.
Terrible. That's one of the weakest endings for him. Is that one.
I'm trying to think. So what we're talking
I will say one of his strongest endings is one of his, I don't want to say newer, but newer compared to, Salem's Lot. 11/22/63.
Yeah, that's about as perfect of an ending
that
as
is
you can
about
get.
as a perfect ending as you get.
Brocky says it.
It is a very strong ending as well.
Yeah.
The Green Mile has a really strong ending.
Yeah.
I will say that is a pretty
Carrie's
Carrie's
got a great ending.
I love the ending of Firestarter.
Yeah, The Shining, and that's the thing. Like, I see as we go, like I feel like I'm just gonna list a lot of them because it's like I don't hate his endings. Like,
Cujo has a perfect ending.
Yeah, I mean, you got Cujo, you get the Dead Zone is wonderful. Misery is incredible. I mean, Christine.
I think Tad's missing my joke.
Needful Things I enjoyed. I'm trying to remember the ending though.
I don't remember Needful Things hardly at all.
That one's much more about the journey. And I think that's probably what it comes down to for me, is I feel like people misinterpret bad ending, where it really comes down to his journeys are just so fucking good that there's just sometimes you're just not going to ever be able to stick the landing to the level of what came previous.
Gerald's game was a fantastic ending.
Think about, like, I think of it like I've always told you for years, for decades now, like there's like two types of trilogies. There's the pre-planned trilogies, and then there's the ones that kind of build on themselves. And the ones that build on themselves, more often than not, the third one is the weakest of them, because it's one of those things that, it kind of builds and builds and builds, and it becomes a thing where it's like by the time you get to that third one, it's just you can't capture the magic that those previous ones were. Not that they're bad, but they're just not as good. Like the original Star Wars trilogy. Return of the Jedi is the weakest of those three movies. It just is, and it's not that it's a bad movie, but it's not as good as A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back, to the point where it's like, and I think that's what it is.
Because that building is so good.
Yeah, and I think that's where it is with King, is I think his building and his journeys are so great that the endings just tend to like, I don't know, they just don't feel as satisfactory. But like, I think it's also because he is like an outliner, so he's not necessarily writing with an ending in mind, and I think that can maybe go towards it a little bit, versus like a guy that like, and I know it's not at writing, but like M. Night Shyamalan, like his type stuff, I feel like there's like a lot of times that the ending is first and then you build like backwards. Nothing wrong with that, but I think with those you tend to get a lot stronger of an ending. And I would assume that like Darabont had the ending of The Mist in mind from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And he was adapting King, so it's not like he had to like build the whole story out, but it's like he knew from the moment one of that how he was ending that and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's my interpretation on it, but certainly we've mentioned a couple. I do think 11/22/63 is one of the greater endings. The Shining, I really love the ending of The Shining a hell of a lot.
Baraki says in the chat, Shawshank and Green Mile.
Yeah.
Those two are good.
Yeah, he's got a lot of great endings, man. For sure.
I don't think
I think probably one of my least favorite may be like Under the Dome. Like, not that I hate it.
That is a kind of ending,
But he does those as well, and sometimes they land. Like Revival.
You know which one has a terrible ending? Tommyknockers. But then again, the whole novel was terrible. So
I need to read that at some point.
It's terrible. Don't waste your time.
Oh man. So we're going.
You should read The Girl Who Loves Tom Gordon before you read Tommyknockers. And
thank you for that segue.
If you read Tommyknockers before the Girl Who Loves Tom Gordon, I'm going to be very upset with you.
So we've got this next article. Ex-MLB star Tom Gordon talks about becoming the subject of a Stephen King novel. Yeah. This is by Ryan Canfield from Fox News on October 2nd, 2025. So Tom Flash Gordon has an impressive resume. He played 21 years in the bigs. He was a 3-time All-Star and recorded 54 consecutive saves.
Nice.
That is insane, actually. It's consecutive. 54 saves. Like that's a good closer, but like
that's a good closer.
Consecutive? That's
in a row?
That's wild. Which is at the time was an MLB record. Apparently that's been beat. Of course, he was also immortalized in the title of Stephen King's novel, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. Gordon said, quote, Stephen King, this great author, his wife Tabitha, they're just coming to the ballpark every single day. And from my understanding now, I didn't know this. They come out of the dugout and sitting for a moment before I could go to the bullpen in the 6th. I didn't know that they watched everything that I did. I didn't know that they sat there and just kind of were saying to themselves, let's see if this guy is the right guy for this moment. And eventually it came to that. I became the guy for that moment. They came and met me in my hometown, ate at a restaurant called Olympic Restaurant, and Tabitha told Stephen King. She says Flash is the right person for this. Stephen told me, he said when she said that there were no other. I'm not sure if he's not a native English speaker, but some of his stuff's here is kind of stilted. And there was no other body, no other person. We were thinking that this is going to happen with you, my friend, Gordon said. And that was actually the final outcome, and I'm grateful. He said, I asked a couple of times, why me? Why me? And he said, there were no better guys to do this because we liked how you approached the game, and I approached the game the same way I did as a kid. And basically the book came out around the same time that he was actually converted to a closer. Quote, and Stephen King took it to a different and bigger, took me to a bigger, higher platform. When Stephen King did that, it sent shockwaves throughout me and my community, my family, everybody in my town. He came here to my town and went to my high school himself and his wife Tabitha, and they both signed autographs for everybody. Families here bought all the books. The book, and it was just really cool, man. It was a moment in my life, and I'll never forget it. I'm grateful I met such a man as Stephen King and his wife Tab. Gordon said, just humble, down to earth people that you love to fall in love with. I'm definitely a Stephen King fan, and I'm grateful that I got a chance. So kind of interesting. If nothing else, it's kind of cool to hear his side of it. I guess I've never thought of it that heavily. But I think the thing that surprises me is they were vetting him. I never would have thought, because I feel like with the way writing works a lot of times, he's just a Red Sox fan, and I feel like it's just one of those things where it's like maybe King had kind of a liked Tom Gordon, and so he just plugged him into the novel. But it sounds like it was actually a very thought out process, where they were going to games, they were watching him closely to and then even when they met with him the first time, it's like, is this the right guy? I haven't read the novel, but I know that the whole idea is she's such a big fan of Tom Gordon and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's weird they put that much time and effort into figuring out the player to use. Especially for a book. We're not talking about a movie or a documentary where it's hey, we're going to do a 10-part documentary like The Last Dance. Let's make sure we pick the right guy. No, this is I'm writing a novel, and this girl's going to be obsessed with this Red Sox player.
It is going to be the title of the novel, so if you find out that he's a piece of shit,
I guess that's true.
Then it's, well, I don't want to read that book. He's a piece of shit.
I guess.
Thing.
Yeah,
so
that's definitely true.
I think that's smart for them to vet that. So you made me think about who has the most consecutive regular save. Eric Jagne, I think is how you pronounce it. Los Angeles Dodgers from 2002 to 2004, 84 consecutive saves.
Shit.
30 more than our boy Tom Gordon.
That's wild.
84 in a row. Holy shit.
I haven't figured out what I'm doing into the next year yet, but I do think I need to start hitting some of these that I have missing now, like Tommy Knockers, Girl Love Tom Gordon.
You are not reading Tommy Knockers before the Girl Who Loves Tom Gordon.
The Eyes of the Dragon, I'm circling it a little bit. But,
it's the last flag for now.
I know, but...
For now.
I know, but...
For all we know, he's in Talisman 3.
See, if I had a genie right now, I'd just say make sure that every book that King writes the rest of his life has flag in it.
And he just dies every single time. It's like, oh my God, you killed Kenny. Oh my God, you killed Flag.
Oh, man.
You bastards.
All right, so let's go ahead and go on over to the next one here. And it is, so this is an interesting one. So there's actually, this guy wrote 2 articles about a week apart. 10 best Stephen King novels from the 20th century, and then the next week he did the 21st century.
Okay.
So I have merged these together.
Going to give me number 10s for both?
Exactly.
Tad, I love you. That's the right way to do it.
So these are both from Jeremy Urquhart. I don't know how you say his last name. From Collider on September 27th and October 1st, 2025. Okay, so this is technically 2 articles again, smash them together. So we can each discuss, agree or disagree on making the list as well as where they land on the lists. As well, also, I want this to be a primer because I think we're actually going to do this on our next roundtable. We're going to do our own list.
Oh, I think this is going to be fun.
20th and 21st century. We don't have to, of course, take his lists by any means. But that's a challenge. We haven't done any open challenges for a while. So it's for the listeners as well. If you want to do one, email it in.
It's also really interesting because it's going to be determined by what you've read.
That as well, yes. That'll be a big one. So
The Girl Who Loves Tom Gordon will not be on your list.
So exactly. So that will be our November roundtable. So you got some time to work on it. So there.
I'm going to hold on. I'm going to set myself a little reminder. I don't want to forget and do it the day before. So go ahead. I'm going to set myself a reminder while you start this list.
All right. So we're going over to number 10 first. Number 10 of the 20th century, Salem's Lot, 1975. Also, we already talked about it a little bit earlier, but so Salem's Lot was...
Will you shrink our camera?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, there's not really a good way for that. I guess I didn't think about the idea. Usually, I let the pictures sit underneath us, but I guess you're correct that these ones actually have titles on them, so I probably got to be a little bit more cognizant of it. Go ahead and riff for a second, and
Billy Summers is so much
there we
better
go.
than number 10.
So let's go like that. All right, there we go. Fixed, sir. All right, so he says for Salem's Lot, he says Salem's Lot was only his second Stephen King novel to be published in 1 year from his first. Showed that one. More on this in a bit. Was no fluke. Salem's Lot was a chunkier novel, although not as long as some of King's other later works. But it needs quite a few pages to successfully paint the portrait of an entire town that's slowly being taken over by vampires. But it does different creative things with conventions inherited from vampire subgenre, all to the point where Salem's Lot does not feel derivative or like it's been too influenced by just one or two previous works.
Okay.
Pretty much everything clicks here. The pacing is strong throughout, and part of Salem's Lot generally does well as creepy. Also, like many of the best Stephen King stories, it's hard to predict what will happen and who will or won't survive. So naturally, it keeps the suspense pretty high throughout. So what do you think for that? Are you surprised it's on the list? Are you surprised where it is on the list? For me,
Seems a little low.
yeah, and I think you might have you probably love this quite a bit because this is your first King novel as well.
It was my first King novel. Also, it's one of his. It's such a classic because vampires, man.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like, it's vampires,
And we see
dude.
vampires come back, right, in the Dark Tower
Yeah.
and stuff. I'm trying to remember if we have other vampires throughout King. Probably some short stories, maybe. But
The Sisters of Illyria.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so I don't think I'm surprised it's on the list by any means. Where it's ranked, I don't even think I'm surprised there because we're talking like 70 something books, right? As far as we count them, as the way we count them, we have 77. So for 77 for a top 10, like you're in the echelon here. So I guess in some ways, I guess I would say that it's hard to be shocked about one's like position on the list. Unless we're talking like an absolute top fucking shelf one. Or is that what you're saying? Do you think this is like...
I think Salem's Lot is in the conversation for top 5. I mean,
Okay.
it's up there. I think it's in the same echelon when you talk about like the most iconic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's vampires. For God's
Yeah.
sakes, it's vampires. It's Stephen King writing vampires, and Barlow and all the stuff that happens in Jerusalem's Lot is just unreal.
Yeah.
So for it to be 10th, I'm kind of intrigued to see what he has above it.
Yeah. So then on the 21st century side, we have Billy Summers. This one surprised me a bit. I will admit too, when I was doing the art, like the research on this, I didn't necessarily go and look at the extended quartet count and like look at where the line is cut for the 21st and 20th century. So maybe if I looked at that list, I wouldn't be as surprised. But I was a little bit surprised to see this one in the top 10. Not a book I hate by any means. I actually rather enjoy this book, but it's just one of those things that, again, without actually taking stock of things, I'm a little bit shocked to see this on here. I suppose.
I think it's just that you took to Later so hard. You loved that book so much.
Well, yeah, but I think it's just more of a fact of like, I don't know. Again, without looking at the list to see like, whatever. Maybe when I actually do my own list, maybe I'll look at it. Maybe Billy Summers ends up on mine. But my first knee jerk reaction was like, oh shit, Billy Summers is number 10. That's kind of wild that made the cut.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I pulled up the extended quartet.
Yeah.
Are we counting Dark Tower books?
Yeah, I think so.
Ooh. My previous statement about Salem's Lot is now retracted. I was, of course, assuming Dark Tower would be excluded, but
Well, I mean, how are you going to cut it for 20th and 21st? Because we got to do both lists.
well, that's
how would you cut it for Dark Tower?
That's what I'm saying. Is like
if you took it as a singular entry, where would you put it?
I mean, majority of it was written before in the 20s.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
it's
He
half
was
and half,
working-
isn't it?
He was working on 5.
It was let's see, so 2001. Yeah, so 4 books in the 20th and 4 books in the 21st.
Oh, primary books, sir.
No.
Went through the keyhole.
Oh.
Come on.
No, it's half and half. I got this collection behind me here. Half of those books are 21st century, half of them are 20th century.
Get out of here. Get out of here. You're done. You're Tad, you're drunk. Go home.
No, so Billy Summers, he says, well, it's a decently lengthy. Billy Summers manages to keep the tension fairly high for just about the entire duration. As far as stories go about hitmen, it's somewhat conventional to the extent that the narration point is out. The whole doing the one last job type thing, but the build up to the main hit is engaging, and what happens afterwards also subverts enough to stay interesting. There are quite a few Stephen King books where the protagonist is too mild or seemingly similar to King himself, and he says in parentheses, keep an eye out for men born in the late 1940s who are 6'4", 6'3", and work as writers. But the central character in Billy Summers is a refreshing change of pace. He is trying to be a writer, but only as a cover story, and he goes to some pretty dark and complex places morally. Of King's non-horror stories, this is definitely one of the better ones in recent memory. So,
yeah.
So you said you're not surprised to see it on the list at all.
No,
and what about ranking? Like,
I mean, I can get it. I'm much more of a fan of it. I would probably put it a little bit higher, but I get it. I am a little bit surprised that it makes the list. A lot of people, maybe just you coloring it for me, not being such a fanboy as I am, that makes me think that other people won't like it as much as I do.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on over to number 9. And the first one in the 20th century, we got The Green Mile.
Ooh.
1996.
That's awfully low.
And he says, so, though there are parts of The Green Mile that are horrific, it's not really a horror novel, at least not to the same extent as some other classic Stephen King novels being mentioned here. Sorry, I'll pause. I guess you were giving your response. I don't have to read his thing and tell you response. So you think it's low?
I think it's low for the
Not
Green
surprised
Mile.
it's on the list then?
No.
Okay. I mean, I guess if you're saying it's too low, then it's probably... It's obvious that you think it'll be on the list. You just think it's going to be higher. So,
Yes.
Okay. He says it also stands out for being a serial novel with 6 parts published separately throughout 1996. Though it's now easier to buy, the thing is a complete novel that spans 400 to 500 pages, depending on the formats or editions. Also, I would say I don't think there's any way to possibly buy it in the serialized fashion. I think now it is only a novel.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those that's almost like a trivia bit for people. That hey, did you know that was published in 6 individual things at a certain point? Like I would imagine this side of 1996, I doubt it's ever been published outside of just being a singular collection. It's set mostly on death row, with the story introducing some fantastical elements throughout the character of John Coffey, who is a prisoner there who might have been falsely accused, and he also has a strange healing power. It was made into a pretty great movie as well. Just 3 years after the 6-part novel, there was were completed and published, but it's one of those instances where the source material remains just as essential to read as the skillfully done adaptation is to watch. So that's not a surprise for me either that it's on here.
Yeah.
That this feels top shelf. I will say, though, I wonder how much Darabont influences the ranking of the book. I feel like sometimes a really good, like, all world-class adaptation can elevate a book. I just think that. Like,
it does.
I wonder if that hadn't been done or if it was adapted by someone else and it just wasn't as great. I wonder if it's on the list. I'm not saying the book doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying I'm always wondering about how those those connections that we have, right?
Well, it's so hard when you're making a list of novels and you have one that has adaptation that's basically a perfect movie, and you're just like, yeah, The Green Mile, John Coffey, and you picture Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah.
Like when that happens,
yeah.
It's like,
and Tom Hanks. I think everyone from the movie, I picture. The last time I read it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, like 100%. So Percy. And on the 21st century side, he's got Revival 2014. He says, any reactions before I...
Captain Daveman in the chat says, I definitely picture the movie when I think of The Green Mile. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Revival?
Revival doesn't shock me. Baraki says, and Shawshank, of course.
Yeah.
Revival doesn't surprise me at all.
No, to be on here.
I think this is about where I would put it. In the 7 to 10 range is where I would picture it, too.
I think it would be higher for me than 9. I think it'd be a little bit closer to the meat of the 10, more so than the lower fringe, just because this is a dark fucking movie. We talked about it
novel
yesterday the novel. Yeah, it hasn't been a movie. Probably will never be a movie. We talked about it yesterday when we were talking about the Pet Sematary movie.
Yeah.
That Pet Sematary is widely regarded one of the darkest ones, but I threw out Revival as a comparison. I'm like, I think Revival is just as dark and bleak as Pet Sematary.
I think the problem with that, and I gave it some thought after we did our hangout yesterday, I think the difference between the two is that Revival, while sad at one part, doesn't necessarily have that carried throughout the book. The ending is dark as fuck.
It is, but I think
everything.
even throughout, there's a lot of
There's
like
not-
addiction, abuse. Like there's
but there's
it's-
not but there's not necessarily like deep depression, sadness kind of stuff.
It's a different kind of
It's a
darkness, but like it's
the loss
pretty-
of a child and what a family goes through with that. Because let's be perfectly honest, that's one of the things we talked about yesterday. Gage dies very early.
yeah.
Like it's not a like in the movie. It's the last 30 minutes of the book that Gage is.
Yeah, the movie. Yeah,
that-
every time
that
I watch,
Gage is gone and everything like that. In the book, it's not that.
no.
So it's a lot more tension. It's a lot more sadness. Not to mention, on top of that, in the book, you have Judd's wife passing away.
Yeah,
So you have that death as well as Gage's. So it's like you get kind of punched in the gut a couple times by King in Pet Cemetery.
yeah, but I feel like a lot of what the Pet Cemetery I don't know. I feel like a lot of where it gets the credit for the darkness isn't necessarily the overall tone, but it's just the fact of like how dark certain parts of it are. And I think if you compare it in that same way, I think Revival is in
Oh
the
no!
same.
If you take Pet Cemetery's darkest moment, and you take Revival's darkest moment, and then you take their second darkest moment and their second darkest moment, and you compare them like 1v1,
Yeah.
absolutely, you're gonna have an equal playing field. But when you take it as a whole, the
And
whole story,
here's
what percentage of it is dark
here's-
versus what percentage of it is
here's
dark.
what I'll say
I think
about
Pet Cemetery. wins.
Here's where I'll argue it though, because I might think Revival's darker because Revival essentially shows the afterlife. And
No, and that's what I'm saying.
But that throws a spell on the entirety of existence
Yeah.
of that world. Is
And
like
that's what I'm saying.
that's
It's
at the end.
That's only one little part of the book at the end. That's the ending. But if you take the
No,
entire
but I'm
story,
But I'm saying that spell that throws a like a pall over the entirety of it because it's like the entire existence. It's kind of like the Dark Tower, right? It's like when
Yeah.
you get to that last bit of it and you realize like, oh shit, like that completely changes the entire story of this series because it's like, wait, this is rolling on in a goddamn never-ending loop. Like
Sure.
it adds a hellacious level to the entire thing, and I think Revival does the same. Where it's like, as you know, there's a lot of dark shit with like addiction. King and addiction. That's a very common thing.
Shocking.
But I would say that with that, it just like retroactively when you go through and read, if you reread it, especially, it's like, dude, this whole like, because then it also puts you in a spot where like, if this is like the real world, like that's like what good is existence at all if that's the end, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's, I don't know. Pet Cemetery Kings called it, so I would assume most people would probably side with him on it for sure. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I'm just saying, if I were to put someone 1v1 versus Pet Cemetery to fight it out, I think Revival's the one I'm putting against it for. Let's battle it out.
If I was going to put something against it, that's probably the one that I would pick as well. I mean, it's.
And so he says Revival is possibly among the more underrated King books, and it's also up there as one of his most frightening. Generally, the author seems more willing to go to dark places in the 70s and 80s than in the decades that followed. But generally, softer King does not mean all of his post-1980s books are lightweight. Revival honestly isn't far from Pet Sematary in terms of grimness. So I guess he calls it out too. Like that book, it's all about grief, death, and the idea of reviving things and possibly defying mortality. Mortality. Revival also spans a few decades, jumping back and forth in time rather than seamlessly, back and forth in time seamlessly, while also exploring other fairly heavy things like addiction and aging. It's dark, but it's still quite easy to read in the sense that it's very compelling, and it's also a very good book to point at if you want to demonstrate to someone that no, King has not completely lost his edge as he's gotten older. The other thing I will say about it is I think I'm starting to disagree with his first point that it's on the underrated side, because anymore, in the last 5 or so years, I feel like everyone is pretty much regarding this as like a top shelf King book. Now, I think it went underrated for a while, but I think the entirety of the constant readership has kind of come back on Revival and realized like, oh shit, we have not given this book credit. And I just feel like anymore, you hardly ever see people talk about the overall King stuff without bringing up Revival as some of the best. So
Yeah.
Let's go over to number 8. We have for the 20th century, we have Carrie, 1974.
Yeah.
So what do you think there?
Yeah.
Response?
Yeah.
Makes the list, as well as you think this is about right for
other people, not for me.
No, yeah, I'm not asking you to pin yourself down, but
I makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. It says, and I agree. I think Carrie is definitely one that, and I'll actually say I think Carrie's getting to the point where it's underrated because I don't think that people give it the credit that it deserves. And I feel like it's one that it's kind of like he said earlier about Salem's Lot, and I agree. But I feel like Salem's Lot and Carrie both end up getting kind of the short end of the stick for a lot of King people, King fans, as the pantheon of King has grown so big.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easy just to like start at like The Shining and The Stand and like these great books, but it's like no, don't skip those first two.
No.
Those are fucking
No,
bangers,
yeah,
man.
and that's what I was saying about Salem's Lot earlier. It's just like, no.
Yeah.
Bump that up to number 10. No.
Yeah.
Get that higher.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I know you're not the biggest, like you're not as crazy as I am when it comes to it, but it's like the Beatles. Everyone always looks at like Revolver, where that's like they went to a different level.
Yeah.
But it's like doesn't mean that Rubber Soul that came before is not a fucking brilliant goddamn album. It's just that. Yeah, I don't know. It just people seem to like fixate where it's like, oh my god, everything changed here, and it's like The Shining, right? He was a fucking rock star at the point The Shining came out. Like that put him on the map as an absolute fucking rock star.
Yeah.
And I just ultimately I think that this is underrated. Both first two are underrated. It says, as mentioned before, there was one Stephen King novel published before Salem's Lot, and that one was Carrie. It's also something that belongs to the horror genre, but there's no vampires or true monsters here, with bullies at the school and an abusive mother standing in for supernatural foes, and the main character being the one with the fantastical powers. They're telekinetic in nature, and it turns out they're not always easy to control. So Carrie is about a bully girl that gets pushed too far, and because of her abilities, when she's backed into a corner, there's immense consequences for those around her. It's an incredibly simple book, but it's also one of King's shortest, and it's no novella or short story, but it doesn't need long to make an impact. It's effective, tense, and timeless, but that hasn't stopped multiple adaptations from being made for that reason. And it says Brian De Palma's is definitely the best place to go with it to start. And then on the 21st century, we have Later. And I, of course, have no qualms with this. This
No notes.
No notes for me. This would have been on the list for me for sure. Anything on the ranking?
No, I get it.
Yeah.
It is one of his like horrors, like true horror.
Yeah. And maybe we don't even necessarily have to go through all of his notes as in depth, but he basically says there isn't necessarily a lot of there is a shortage of Stephen King books without adaptations, but Later is one of them for now. But he says probably not for long. I hope we get an adaptation on it. Actually, Lucy Liu was attached to something, but that was again right around COVID time, so kind of around the same time as Rats. I don't know if it's still a thing or not, but. He says it might sound messy, but it's a blend of crime, horror, with a premise that involves someone who can see dead people and therefore learns things about their murders. But it works. King makes it work. It's cheesy, but it's the right kind of cheesy. It's like an enjoyable pulp, and King just takes a story that would have fallen apart in the hands of most writers and commits to it and keeps the whole thing continually readable and also not too long. Good pacing is not something in every King book, but neither are plot twists, really. King doesn't do them very often, but preferably to emphasize suspense over surprise. But to his credit, he does get one in Later, and it works surprisingly well. So, agreed.
Yeah, it is such a good novel. That is, unfortunately, short is one of the biggest takeaways from it.
Yeah, it's one that I wanted 200 more pages, but doesn't mean I don't love it still. It's just, I would have loved more from it. So, going over to number 7, he's got in the 20th century, The Dead Zone. For me...
Really? That's shocking.
For me, not shocking it made the list. Are you talking shocking that it's down here?
Shocking that it made the list.
Oh, really? Oh,
I don't think a lot of people consider The Dead Zone...
Oh, yeah.
No. I'm not saying it's bad that it's on the list. I'm saying that it's shocking that he likes it. A lot of people, I don't think, give The Dead Zone credit. I think it deserves way more credit. It deserves its flowers, and people don't give it to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a massive fan of The Dead Zone. It's been no secret on this show that it's one that it's one of those ones that just had me by the throat the entire time reading it.
Yeah.
It was one of the ones that I remember distinctly, driving home or driving to somewhere and then sitting in my car for another 10-15 minutes to keep listening because it's just so fucking good. We just reread it not too long ago for one of our Patreon hangouts, if I remember right. So it's a little bit fresh in my mind as well, but it's definitely a good one. It definitely would make the list for me. In fact, my surprise would maybe be that I would probably maybe think of it higher than 7. So kind of interesting how we, and that's the great thing about it, right? When it comes to art and stuff, is we all think of it different. You're surprised it's on the list. I'm surprised it's down at number 7. So
yeah, I'm not surprised that it's on your list because I know that you like it a lot.
Yeah,
but I just didn't think that other people liked it. So
yeah. So he says easily one of the best Stephen King novels set in Castle Rock. The Dead Zone is about a man who can see flashes of the future by touching certain people or objects. He comes into contact with a politician at one point and gets visions of the damage the said politician will do to the world if he becomes president. And so there's much of the novel becomes about stopping this politician's rise to power. Also, I don't know. The movie abridged the presidential story quite a bit. It took a long time to get around to it, but the book it's a lot more prevalent. There's also some stuff to do with tracking down and stopping a serial killer, which isn't bad, but it feels like somewhat of an awkward inserted subplot compared to the best stuff of the Dead Zone. Still, if like 80% of the novel is great and the other 20% remains solid, then you have something that's pretty great overall. The Dead Zone also ends on a stronger note than some of the more divisive King books out there, and so that counts for something. And yeah, I think I disagree. I think the serial killer stuff I really enjoyed.
I
in the
love
book,
that
so,
part
yeah,
of it.
me too. Like, because it's like,
honestly, I preferred that over the whole presidential stuff. But I get where that became like the major plot point because end of the world.
Yeah,
it became a bigger stakes, than just a serial killer.
Yeah. And then in the 21st century, Under the Dome. And this one actually surprises me to make the list. I mean, I don't hate Under the Dome by any means. I will say, to my point earlier, I think it has been harmed a little bit by the bad adaptation.
That is what I was going to bring up is like, while we have ones like The Green Mile that are helped by their adaptations, we also have ones that have bad adaptations, such as Under the Dome and Firestarter, that can be harmed by it as well.
Except for the judo chop to the face.
That is the only thing redeemable.
I will say, I need to reread Under the Dome. I don't think I've read it since 2009 when it came out. I remember having that fucking hardcover that was like a goddamn murder weapon. I don't think I've ever listened to it. I don't think I've ever reread it. I think I read it in 2009 for that hardcover, and I think it's the last time I've read it. I don't hate it by any means. I remember being like absolutely like grabbed by the throat through most of the book. I remember reading a good chunk of it in like a week and a half or so, which is crazy for as long a book as it is. But I am surprised it made the list, though, to be honest, because like you said earlier, I don't necessarily see this as one that people love a lot. So even if you just narrow it down to the 21st century, I don't necessarily see this making the list. So
Baraki gave us his list for the 21st century in the chat and said he was going to get a lot of hate for his number 3, which is Under the Dome. And he says, okay, I can put the bad adaptation aside for Under the Dome.
Oh yeah, and I'm not, and I don't think it's fair to let an adaptation affect a book, good or bad. I think a book should just stand on its own. I'm just saying that I will say maybe one of the reasons I haven't gone back and reread it is because the show kind of put a little bit of a mark on it. But again, I'm also admitting that 2009 is a long fucking time ago.
It is.
So it's wild that I haven't reread it and I've never listened to the audiobook. So maybe that's one that in the upcoming year, I did
listen to the audiobook once, and I read it after you read it because that is right around the time where me and you really got back into King. I don't know how much you fell off in the 2000s, from 2000 to 2009, but when you read Under the Dome and you're like, dude, you got to read this.
Yeah.
And you gave me your copy and I read it after you. At that point, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah. I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back in the Stephen King. I'm gonna read a lot more of his stuff. I'm gonna reread stuff and everything like
that. I think that's
so.
probably about. Well, no, I can't say I read everything because I didn't miss Full Dark No Stars that came out next. But then, I guess I missed some of them, but like I think that did kind of pull me in a little bit more because I don't think a lot of the stuff, between Under the Dome and the Dark Tower series wrapping up, I don't think I read any of those until doing the show in the last 10 years, which also a 10-year anniversary.
We did.
So
we didn't
forgot to mention it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had technical difficulties. I mean, heck, we didn't even do our intro stuff for the podcast. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah, it is.
An hour and a half in.
Yeah,
that's all right.
That's what technical difficulties does.
That's what they do.
So.
No, but I think that Under the Dome, listening to the audiobook once, and then I've tried. That's where the big thing for me, the big step towards becoming a Stephen King. I'm only 5 away from completing my Stephen King anthology of reading, listening to everything. I think the big thing for me came when you introduced me to Audible and audiobooks.
Yeah.
And that was in 2015. So,
yeah.
No, 2014 is when that happened because it was when we first started working together again.
Yeah.
And that was it for me, and that's one of the ones that I listened to was Under the Dome. I've tried to go back to it twice since that one time listening, and both times I've gotten a little bit in, and I just went, nah, no,
Yeah.
I'm not in the mood.
Yeah.
And I learned from you that if I'm not in the mood, don't listen. Don't
Yeah.
read. Don't listen.
Yeah.
Don't taint it.
Yeah. But
Be in the mood.
I did really enjoy it when it came out, though. He
Yeah.
does mention it's the third longest Stephen King novel, so
Yeah.
that's kind of a fun little fact there. Let's go on over to number 6, 20th Century, The Eyes of the Dragon. You can only speak to it. I cannot. It's not one I've read because it's my last flag book, and if I don't read it, I always have some flag out there for me to read. So I don't know. Maybe it's not the best way to look at things, but it's the way I look at it. So I will actually say I'm surprised by this, though, even having not read it, because there's not a lot of top 10 lists that have Eyes of the Dragon on it.
Yeah.
So I will say, and I don't know. I feel like the 20th century stuff tends to dominate in most overall King lists anyway. So I don't think that like the dividing of the centuries necessarily like is what not dividing is what caused this to not make lists. I've seen plenty of lists, and yeah, it's just not one that shows up a whole lot. And I don't think that chopping it down makes this one like rise to the top. I think this guy
Sure.
genuinely likes this book. So
I will
say surprised just because of all the lists I've ever covered over the 10 years doing this show. I haven't seen this on a lot of lists. So
It belongs on the list. It's good.
yeah,
It's good. I don't know about 6.
yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know about over carrying the Green Mile in Salem's Lot, but
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe on the list. We'll see how it falls. In a month when we do our lists.
Yeah, for sure. And then the 21st Century, The Institute. So, again, one that I think it's hard for me because, like, the 20th century, like, I don't know. Again, I haven't actually gone and looked at, like, hey, where's the line and then look at the entirety of the stuff. But I will say this one surprised me. And maybe it's just because it is on the quote-unquote newer side of King. And it's just hard to see these on these lists because I know he's narrowing it down to 21st century. But we don't usually see that, so it's just weird to see some of these where it's like, oh my god, on the top 10. But I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, we both read it like twice in inside of a month when it first came out.
Yeah,
so,
never again.
That wasn't necessarily a great idea, and it probably has hurt my, me revisiting it sooner. But I did really enjoy it. I mean, I feel like we both remember saying the same thing, where it was like it just felt like the return of King doing children very well.
Yeah.
And I feel like King like putting children in harm's way and then kind of making us kind of follow and care for these kids. That's like a classic King trope, and I think that he just showed here with the Institute in 2019 that it hasn't really changed. Him being an older man hasn't changed the fact that he still writes kids really, really well. So I'm not surprised it's on the list, or I guess I'm a little bit surprised it's on the list. I'm also surprised at how high it is, a bit.
Yeah.
So fully accepting the fact that I haven't actually looked at the entirety of the list of the 21st century. I think if I did that, it might change my views a little bit. But I will say that the Institute, if it made the list, I would, for me, I would say that maybe lower on the list, like a 9 or 10 feels a little bit more what I would expect. Not saying this guy's wrong, just that's what I would expect. So this did surprise me a smidge. What about you?
No, I think that's you said it right. I agree with everything you said. I could see it being 6 if some heavy hitters didn't come out, but a lot of heavy hitters have come out in the 21st century. So
yeah,
I mean, like we just did with Eyes of the Dragon. Let's look at the lower on the list. Later revival, Billy Summers, and Under the Dome. I can see the argument that the Institute's is good, if not better than some of those.
Yeah.
Or all of them. So
yeah,
that one not nearly as much as like the Eyes of the Dragon, where it's like you're gonna put Eyes of the Dragon up against the Green Mile, Salem's Lot,
yeah,
Carrie.
yeah,
That's where it's like
yeah. My gut check is that when I do my own list, the 20th century is going to be a hell of a lot harder than the 21st century, just because like some of the most iconic things of all time for King are in the 20th century. So it's like
I think that
that's going to be tough.
I think it's actually going to be reversed.
Really?
The reason why is because exactly what you just said. We've done a lot of top 10 lists and stuff like that, and it's all been the 20th century stuff. All the 21st century stuff kind of just gets brushed aside except for like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But now you're going to have to rank those. You never ranked those before. That might cause some problems. It's like,
could.
Later versus 11/22/63. Oh,
Yeah.
11 later versus Dr. Sleep.
Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like my shotgun list for the 20th century is going to be longer, and therefore it'll be harder to whittle down. Whereas the 20th century or the 21st century, I feel like there would be kind of a good, healthy shotgun list that won't need a lot of trimming, and that'll be a matter of like placing them.
I think there's going to be more favoritism in my 20th century list than 21st century.
All right, so next up we got number 5, getting into the top 5, Misery for the 20th century. I not surprised to see this one, to be honest. I don't think this one necessarily gets as much love as it should. I do think the adaptation helps quite a bit. But this is a strong fucking novel, man. The first time I read it, I was blown away. And of course I'd seen the movie a number of times and stuff. But I just don't think I was ready for how good this novel was.
Yeah.
Even on top of like one of the only King movies to ever win a high-end Academy Award. So this one blew me away. It's a great one. I really love this book a lot. So this feels right. May feel a smidge high for me. Maybe. Just, again, I haven't actually gone and done the, got like the list split out and then like kind of looked at it all. It's more just gut check of like, feels a little high to me at 5. Even though it's a one that I absolutely love. So let's see.
I think it feels right.
Brocky said they did a good job on the Under the Dome audiobook. He also says I'm tempted to put Silver Bullet on my 20th century list if I can find room, but there are so many great ones. Yeah, exactly. And then the 21st century, Dr. Sleep.
Not surprising.
Not surprising. Yeah, I mean, I guess where it lands, I think that's a hard part because again, I just haven't done like the actual like overall look at the list, so it's kind of I feel like I'm going to be shocked. Well, no, I guess I'm not shocked. If anything, maybe I'm shocked that it wouldn't maybe be even a slot higher. So maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm. The more I'm talking, the more I'm thinking. No, Dr. Sleep is up there. Also, it's one that I never thought would be good when they first announced it because I'm like, King doesn't do sequels. He's now doing a sequel to one of the most iconic books he's ever done. Like, I remember that back in like 2013 when they announced like, oh, next year he's going to do a fucking sequel to The Shining.
I remember being kind of like, well, what's he going to do? Are they going to be trapped in like a Bahamas resort this time, and like what
yeah so yeah, I think this one fits for me. One of the rare ones though where I do think the adaptation is better than the book, but that's just me. What about you? Any surprises here?
I love Dr. Sleep, and I think you're crazy to think the adaptation's better than the book.
It really is, man.
No, the book is so good.
I love the adaptation so much, man. All right, number 4.
That's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
We've got number on the 20th century. We got Drawing of the Three. Okay. And then so any surprise there?
No.
I think it's gonna be tough for us because we're Dark Tower fans. So like. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
1 through 4.
Yeah, pretty much. But Drawing of the Three is incredible. I mean, that's why we're doing this show, is this book. This is what truly hooked me into this series.
Yeah.
I knew the second the Roland looked through that door and saw the inside of a 737 or whatever the size fucking plane it was. That's the moment I knew, like, I'm in this thing all the way. Because the first book, it was very hit or miss for me. I was very, like, I don't know, man. This doesn't feel like normal King that I've ever read. It's kind of different stylistically and stuff. I didn't necessarily hate it, but I didn't overly love it. And if we would have felt the same kind of book into this one, I probably wouldn't have continued on the series. But this book just fucking rocks. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. So, and then on the 21st century side, Wolves of the Kala. You can make your remarks on either of them because I didn't give you much of a chance on the 20th century.
No, I mean, I get it.
And at number 4, so pretty high on the list for some Dark Tower love here. So
Wolves of the Call deserves to be higher.
Wolves of the Call, I'm shocked to see this one, to be honest, just because like I think it's people have kind of I think the whole tail end of the Dark Tower series, like fans are kind of revising a bit, but over the last 20 years or so, there's been a lot of hate for the tail end of the book versus the early books.
The 5, 6, 7.
And I feel like now you're starting to get a lot more like people revisiting them and realizing like, no, these books are actually great. I've never hated them.
Yeah.
But man, that's high. I don't know. And
well deserved.
It's your favorite book, so I'm not necessarily gonna like I'm not shitting on it by any means. It's just 4. That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild. So, it is Magnificent 7. So, or the 7th Samurai, whatever you want to look at there. So, Baraki says incoming Wolves hate. Just kidding. Not hate exactly. But I will say though, overall, I do think that we're seeing a lot of kind of people coming around on the whole tail end of the series. Because, yeah, for the longest time, I remember 10, 15 years after them, there was just constant where it's like, oh, the series is great, but the first half is so much better than the second half. The second half just, I really wish King wouldn't have rushed it, and on and on and on. And I don't know, I feel like there was a long time in that, but I feel like we're kind of leveling it out now. Kind of the prequel thing happening, right? Where now people are just kind of seeing it not one at a time, but now they just see it as a whole thing, and it's just like people aren't making this distinction of like, oh, there's this weird line where everything after this line is not as good as before. Like, you don't see that as much with newer readers. I think they're just reading the whole thing, and it's just like, oh, this is all great.
Yeah, I just wonder how long until that love comes full circle around to the Star Wars sequels. You know, like we hated them at first, but now we're gonna love them.
We'll see. No comment. There's a top 5 movie in the sequel trilogy for me. So, yeah,
you are one of the very few that think that.
No, just the loud people. Because when you go look at the rankings, it's actually one of the highest rated Star Wars films of all of them.
We're going to talk about this. Don't worry.
So, yeah. So moving over to number 3, we got The Shining in the 20th century. Not at all a surprise to me. I think it's one of the greatest King novels of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one that, like, I don't necessarily, like, immediately peg as, like, one of my all-time, like, rereads, but every time I start to think about it, I'm like, outside of The Dark Tower and The Shining, or The Stand, The Shining is my most reread King novel. And you know what? I'm telling you right now, I would say I'm probably I'm not further than 3 months away from another reread on it, because it pulls me in, man. And there's just an element of like, I want to go through that whole investigation with Jack again. I want to run into the hedge animals again. I want to run into Miss Massey again. Like, it's a book that just fucking pulls me magnetically. So, not at all. This fits really well for me. What about you? What do you think?
No, it makes sense. Honestly, 1, 2, 3. That's where you're putting The Shining, right? Like, it has to be in the top 3.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it weren't up here. Like if this were at number 6.
There's the 3 novels, and you're going to rotate 1, 2, and 3 between the 3 of them.
Yeah.
Again, this is why I say that the 20th century list isn't as hard as the 21st century.
But if this one,
because you have 3 already pegged for that list, it's done. Those 3 are in.
Yeah, and then on the 21st century, Mr. Mercedes.
That one shocks me how high that is.
Me too. That actually surprised me quite a bit. I love this book, but putting it in this, I mean, especially when you smash these lists together like we're doing, which isn't how he wrote it, but how we're doing it, to say that this is on the same level as The Shining, I mean, on the comparative list is kind of wild to me. It is a great book though. I'm not sure if it'll make it this high on mine, but yeah, it's kind of a surprise.
I don't think it'll make my list.
Oh, really? The whole trilogy, whatever, but the first book is fucking strong. I love the first one.
Don't get me wrong. I love Mr. Mercedes. I love Finders Keepers. I love what's the third one?
End of Watch.
End of Watch.
Yeah.
Last Rites was stuck in my head, and I'm like, no, that's The Conjuring. End of Watch is good. I'm sorry. Outsider's better than all 3 of them put together. The Outsider is way better. It's so good. It's so good. And I if you're going to make me pick one, it's going to be The Outsider, but Mr. Mercedes is number 2. It is. But I know it doesn't have Bill, so it's not the Bill Hodges. You know, it's the Bill Hodges trilogy and then the extended with Holly. But
and I will say, too, like, I feel like the Mr. Mercedes is really one of King's first forays into, like not first, but it's one of his major forays into, like, the non-supernatural. It is 100%. This could have been written by anyone. And like, King, there's not a lot of that in King's history. Like, a lot of his stuff, there's some element of supernatural stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be like crazy Carrie, but like there's going to be elements of supernatural or like whatever. And this one was just one where I remember reading it where I'm like, at the end of it, I was like, this almost didn't feel like a King book. Like, it did because there was like King elements, but like it almost, like, if you like just wrote this out, I don't know if people would peg it as a King book. So, and then number 2, we've got The Stand and 11/22/63.
Yep. Yeah.
So, disagree. The stand is far too low. Far too low.
Far too low? There's only one place it can go, Tad.
Yeah, far too low. Far too low. And then 11/22/63 actually shocked me a little bit to see this here, because when I first started doing the prep on this, I for sure thought that would be number 1 on the 21st century. Yeah. So, what about you?
No, I kind of expected it. Like, it's the goal. It's the best one of that decade, right? Like, widely regarded as his best book from that decade.
Well, yeah, the decade, but the century as well, the 21st century.
There's not many great books from 2000 to...
No, this is number 2 though. So
yeah,
that's what it surprised me is 11/22/63.
Oh, is that it's not number 1?
Yeah, I was like, I expected 100% to be number 1. So when I was like cycling through and building this out, I hit that and I was like, wait, what the fuck? And I
Wait,
scrolled
what's the-
down to see number one because I was like, I mean, when we did our overall rankings, this was top 5 for both of us. So, for 21st Century, I was like, oh, cool. 11/22/62 would be number 1. What's the rest? And then it turned out not to be number 1. So that shocked me a bit. And of course, The Stand, it's too low. And then number 1, we have It and The Dark Tower. So once I scrolled down and saw The Dark Tower, I'm like, okay.
Like, right.
I put my knife away. I was like, okay. I won't be going to hunt down anyone here. I mean, like you said, the 20th century, we don't even have to talk about that much because it is always kind of those same 3.
It is.
Everyone seems to have those same 3. And when we did that thing where we actually calculated it all out, those 3 ended up with the highest scores because they were always on everyone's list, and almost exclusively they were up in those top.
Yeah, there was the occasional person who had The Shining 4th or The Stand 5th,
but it rare.
But it was rare.
Yeah.
Majority of people had It, Shining, and The Stand as their top 3, just in different orders. So no shock, no surprise here for It.
No, and like I said, I was pretty shocked to see 11/22/63 number 2, but once I saw The Dark Tower, book 7, on the number 1, I'm like, okay, I get that because like it is an absolutely wonderful book.
Yeah.
It'll destroy you though.
Yeah.
It'll destroy you. But it is an absolutely wonderful book. I will read what he said. He said some people would argue there are clunkier things about The Dark Tower 7 than the title, but no, this is the clunkiest part of the novel is the title, that it's The Dark Tower series, The Dark Tower. That is tough. That naming wise, it's like
why didn't you just go with The Rose
or the Tower? Just the Tower. Just take the
The
dark part out.
The Dark Tower.
The dark,
Tower.
yeah, The Dark Tower is the Tower. I would agree with him there. He says this is a very strange conclusion of the whole Dark Tower saga, and has so much it would be incredibly difficult to translate to the world of TV or film if anyone ever wanted to adapt the series properly. But it's fascinating and unique as a novel. It's also difficult to say how much of the plot, much about the plot, because it starts with so much happening already, and hinting at where it begins necessitates spoiling the other 6 books. But with the final entry of this series, the stakes are high and the emotional intensity is pretty much unparalleled with the King's body of work. It acknowledges the difficulty of ending a story with so many expectations, but it does so in a way that, while jarring at first, has a certain amount of sense once you sat with the whole thing. And in that manner, honestly, it's not far off of The Sopranos. It's odd, but a fitting finale. So, good stuff. So when we got a couple odds and ends we can hit on our way out here. The first one, we got a review for Welcome to Derry from Mr. Stephen King.
Oh!
He said, Welcome to Derry is amazing. First episode is terrifying. So that sounds fun. Can't wait to watch it. And then next up, we've got a poster for The Running Man. I don't know if we've had a poster yet.
Didn't
but
we?
I'm not sure if we have or not.
That looks familiar.
No, this is new since our last episode. If you've seen it, you saw it somewhere other than here. I'm just trying to remember if we had a teaser poster previously. I love this though, like the guy in the middle that's like the host and shit. Like everything about this vibes for me. I love this poster.
No, that's not the poster I was thinking of. There was a poster where it's just Glenn Powell's face and it says "Hunt him down" across it.
Oh, so maybe a teaser poster.
Yeah.
So I love this one though. This one does it for me. And then next up, we've got Stephen King listing in no particular order his top 10 favorite films of all time. 1977's Sorcerer, 74's Godfather Part 2, 1972's The Getaway, 1993's Groundhog's Day. That's an interesting one.
I've still never seen that movie.
1943's Casablanca, 1948's Treasure of the Sierra Madre, 1975 Jaws, 1973's Mean Streets, 1977's Close Encounter of a Third Kind, and 1944's Double Indemnity. Not a lot of shockers there. Probably Groundhog's Day is probably the most shocking, where it's like, whoa, you don't see that on a lot of top 10 lists. Yeah. It's a good movie, and for Stephen King that wrote the Dark Tower series, I can see why maybe he likes it. And then Uncle Stevie recommends we got Killing Faith on Threads. He says a quasi supernatural western that has echoes of Cormac McCarthy. The first scene involves a child and a horse and is an authentic shocker. I don't know what that means, but
Does the horse kill the child?
I don't know. Or does the child kill the horse? Or is there no killing at all? Who knows? He says Cormac McCarthy, though, so I have an assumption something bad will happen. Then on Threads, he says, We Live Here Now. Sarah Pineborn's very scary. Turns out there's life in the haunted house plot after all. Original, and my God, so dark, you'll never guess the ending. So that sounds fun. And then on Threads, he also says, I think Alien Earth might be my favorite. The special effects are amazing, not to mention gross, and the dialogue is sharp. The real monsters appear to be the 5 corporations that have carved up the planet. And then...
Using the word gross makes me want to watch it even more.
Oh, it's brutal.
It's yucky.
Oh, yes, very
as
very
Hayden
much.
would say.
And on top of it, they've added stuff into this pantheon of this world that I never thought you could do because it's so well ingrained, and I love everything they've added.
Okay.
There's new creatures, new things happening, and it's like...
Every one of them is just like, yes, that's a good addition. Yes, that's a good addition.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you would have asked me before the show came out, like, hey, they're going to introduce, like, just, I don't know if this is real, but let's just say they introduced 3 new things to it. I would have been like, nah, you're stepping on, you're pulling on Superman's cape here. That you shouldn't do that. But every one of them have been incredible. So then he said on Twitter, Coffin Moon, Keith Rosen. This is mind-blowingly good, a horror novel that will keep you awake long after the last page. So that sounds fun. And then he says on Twitter, Task, HBO. It's a crime story. It's nail-biting suspense. You'll care about the lawmen, led by Mark Ruffalo, and the criminals. Most of all, you'll care about the kidnapped little boy. So those are some Uncle Stevie recommends there. Did I miss anything in the Groundhogs or a Wheel? That's good.
Baraki said The Outsider is kind of Dean Koontz stuff, also Duma Key. And then I feel like that's an insult to my outsider there. Calling it Dean Koontz. How dare?
And then David says, I had a weird dream the other night where I was riding passenger with Stephen King while he was driving Brian Smith's van.
Oh, God.
That is wild.
As long as I'm not walking on the side of the road, I'm good.
Well, if King's in the van, we're okay. Right? That's what we got to be careful of.
Yeah,
King's
as long as he's in the van.
He's in the van, he's safe. As long as the dogs aren't evil, though, which I'm still not convinced.
They're not evil.
It wasn't a Saint Bernard, at least. So,
and Baraki is fair. He is justifying himself. He does say that The Outsider is on his list.
Okay.
So.
But that is it for this episode on the outro stuff. If you want to subscribe to us, you can do that on any podcasting service of your choice. You can stream us on Spotify or Amazon Music or Audible. Join us for the live streams here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Sorry about the technical difficulties that had us starting a couple minutes late. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Otherwise, Blaine will shoot lightning teeth at Peter.
Or fry Tad's computer again.
And then if you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com. I'll have links to all the articles in this that we covered here. And then if you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. We just did our hangout where we watched the original Pet Cemetery adaptation, as well as you get access to our Discord server at any level of subscription. And you get the monthly hangouts. And then if you're at the highest level, you could co-host a show with us. And if you want to contact the show.
Next month's hangout is The Running Man Read.
Yeah, we're rereading The Running Man, so that should be fun.
But yeah, if you want to contact the show, Baraki, I'm looking at you. You need to email us, show@darktowerpalaver.com. Email us your lists.
Yeah, everyone.
Top 10 20th century and 21st century. Just put them 20th century, top 10, and 21st century, top 10. And Tad will build us algorithm.
I have a feeling that if not for, except for any Flanagan news, I have a feeling that's pretty much going to be our episode next time, too, because that'll be a long discussion. So
yeah, the email is show@darktowerpalaver.com. Then Threads, Instagram, Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. And then Blue Sky is at darktowerpalaver.bsky.social. And then our Twitter is @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. And then check us out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And then you can always find our merch. It's tpublic.com/user/darktowerpalaver. Get yourself a #TadIsTerrible sticker.
And I'm rocking a Nothing But Strikes at Midworld Lane shirt today.
It's a good shirt.
Found that in my closet. I was like, oh, I forgot I had that.
Yeah.
So that's a fun shirt. I wore it a few times in public, and people are like, oh, I love bowling. I'm like, yeah, so do I.
Not there, you don't.
All right, and we will sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining in this live chat. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties, and we have no oi at the end of the episode. I'll be able to insert it for the podcast people, but you all don't have it. So I need to figure out what the hell's going on with my stuff here. It's what happens when you mess with your computer too deeply.
Fix it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm able to fix it before the next our next episode here in a few minutes, but I will get it fixed by the next episode.
I'm pulling it up
sure.
on my phone, though, if you're not going to let me. Hey, Brocky, get that snake emoji out of the chat.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Oh, yeah, we haven't had we had an emoji earlier, too, but a snake emoji, love it. Love Ermont, R.I.P., our sweet prince. All right, see you guys.